Islam and Muslims tend to be at the heart of most conversations over immigration and the failure of multiculturalism in modern Britain. And if you ask The Guardian or the BBC or any other leftist why that is, you'll be told it's because the native people have a sort of irrational bigotry, that people needlessly pile into Muslims because of fear and hatred and all the othering, quote-unquote, that goes on in the media. On the other hand, if you asked anybody on the right, you might hear something like Islam is treated with suspicion because it's quite aggressive in demanding its cultural supremacy in the UK, the historic terror attacks, extremism, grooming gangs, and historical enmity between Christendom and the Islamic world. Now, I know this sounds like a soppy liberal thing to say, but do just hear me out. I do think it's true that there are many different forms of Islam within Islam. You have the more mystical-minded, softer Sufis, you have the extreme hardline Wahhabi Salafists, you have the older Muslims who are into their religion but don't take it quite so seriously compared to the volatile youngsters, and then you have the half-westernized Muslims who drink alcohol, fornicate with women, and so on. Well, like anything in our modern world that's a little bit complicated, it has to be simplified down into bite-sized chunks for upper middle class liberals to chomp on down as they contemplate what wonderful people with excellent ideologies they have. This is where we get the mainstream liberal notion from our leaders that we hear from time to time that Islam is, quote, a religion of peace. It's all kittens and fairies and rivers made of chocolate, everybody having a great time at pride marches, and they're very anti-racist, don't you know? They're good people, and you'd know that if you weren't so evil and bigoted. The problem is, though, that this BBC one-show liberalised version of Islam is so overdone, it becomes too easy to parody because it's just, quite frankly, ridiculous. The ridiculously OTT sanitised version of Islam also makes many people feel they're clearly being lied to, especially when there's a wealth of content online with Muslims acting the complete opposite of how the BBC would tell them.
You're a liar. I wouldn't trust you and I hate you as well.
So the point is you won't have a conversation with me because I'm a Christian?
No, I won't believe anything you say because you're a liar. And you're a Christian as well. I hate you for the sake of Allah.
You hate me for the sake of Allah?
I hate you for the sake of Allah.
Alright.
I hate you for the sake of Allah. Every Christian, I hate you all for the sake of Allah.
Of course, if the roles were reversed here and this was a Christian saying these sorts of things, we'd have debates on Question Time, the Nikki Campbell question show on a Saturday morning or whatever it is. It'd go on for weeks talking about Christian extremism and intolerance and so on. Now, the mainstream media's handling of this is often so childish and so poor, I sometimes wonder if someone behind the scenes is playing some 4D chess to set Muslims and Westerners against one another. I'll contemplate that one for a while and see what conclusions I come to. However, it does seem that many people on the online right start to think of Islam as a sort of aggressive death cult that just wants to subjugate the world. Now, as I often say on this channel, I try not to act from anger, as I find that can often blind me from realising deeper truths. And I think one that might be going on here is that Islam may have done a better job at maintaining its tradition in the face of corrosive global modernity than the Western world has by a long shot. Now, I know some people who watch these videos find it objectionable to say anything like that we shouldn't give an inch to Islam, but personally I do think that having respect for elements of how Islam has kept itself together doesn't equate to me meaning that I don't think terror attacks are a serious problem, that the grooming gangs aren't an absolute abomination, that I don't want to see the Islamification of the West. Further to that, I recently made a video, I'll link it below if you want to check it out, on whether Islam will even survive modernity. It seems to me to be making many of the exact same mistakes that Christendom made, and worse, given it's become the sort of de facto religion of globalist liberalism. Now, I first started thinking about the themes in this video after I saw a video this morning from a group of Muslims in the Netherlands who are training what they call an army to, quote, take over the world. Now, this got lots of kind of online right-wing, slightly sloppy accounts, very upset, but just check out the video.
Let me tell you guys more about the full force mindset. This is an army full of brothers with the same mindset, the same goals, to be the best they can possibly be, physically, mentally and spiritually, to get stronger with whatever they want. Calisthenics, wrestling, to get stronger in their deen as well. Brotherhood, we compete with each other to bring the best out of each other. Alhamdulillah, I'm saying this with chest, the army is growing. All by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We try to inspire the youth, even the elderly people, to reach their full potential. May Allah purify our intentions. Join the full force army, inshallah. We're gonna take over the world soon, inshallah. Salute, meus.
Now personally, I don't think this young man is literally going to try and take over the world, nor has he actually got an army. I think that's just tough talk to appeal to young Muslim men. Of course, I could be wrong. Maybe he is going to try and take the White House tomorrow, and maybe these guys are potentially dangerous. However, elements of this do appeal to me. I mean, the idea of getting stronger physically, mentally, spiritually, supporting your community, trying to be the best man that you can be, and support your brothers in that mission. Now, maybe I'm just being naive, and these are violent nutcases who just want to cause trouble, and if that's the case, not my cup of tea. But if it is something about supporting other young men by getting stronger, getting better, rebuilding your tradition, being positive, then I respect it. I've got to say I'm all for it, and I think, why aren't we doing things like this? I suppose the obvious answer to that is people like Keir Starmer. If he saw the video of the young Muslim lads, he'd probably do his whole, "Let me be absolutely clear. Islam is a religion of peace and these are wonderful young men. Maybe I could do my boxing skills with them. But then if a bunch of Christian Western lads did even a tenth of the energy of this, he'd probably say, 20 years in jail apiece, you far-right Christian scum. The main point I'm trying to get to here is there are elements of Islam that I can respect. One of the main ones might be that they do genuinely try and look out for each other and see each other as a collective. I think that speaks to me because I'm tired of the relentless individualism of the Western world and people thinking of themselves as some atomized unit that's not connected to the whole. That's leading to the Western decline, and I think we should look out for each other more. Second to that, many Muslims, not all of them mind, tend to be quite adherent to their tradition. They tend to be quite religious. That means that they have cultural vitality. Their birth rates are high, and you can see they're on the ascendancy at the moment. This is why I don't buy the stories that crop up every now and again that churches are being converted into mosques. It's not that that's not happening. It's that it's not exactly that Muslims are taking them. It's that the churches themselves aren't being used. Let's be honest, nobody goes to church anymore, so these are empty buildings a lot of the time. As a metaphor for the Western world on the whole there, it's not so much the Western tradition is being taken from us, it's that we're giving it away via our own complacency most of the time. Islam also seems to have maintained its gender norms in a woke era, although that may well be ending, as well as kept the masculine side of their religion alive. But then that may well be because they're seen as a victim group in the West. Remember the fuss in Birmingham when the Muslims were protesting over their kids getting LGBTQ education? Local MP and Labour feminist Jess Phillips then turned up to talk some sense into the Muslims, but then quickly realised she couldn't yell at them as evil bigots like she would white Christians. That is, of course, because they're Muslims, which would make Jess Phillips Islamophobic and therefore a racist, so she kept her mouth shut. And while this sort of thing is annoying and Islamophobia is always used to cover any criticism of Islam, I do think it will be the Achilles heel of Islam in the long run. What I mean is, while it is clear that some more radical Muslims will use Islamophobia to stop any criticism of the religion, it's also the case that Islamophobia has been taken into the intersectional philosophy. What that means is that Muslims become a victim group like homosexuals or trans people or whatever. That's not a strong ascendant to masculine position, it's more of a weak and soft position of something which is actually declining. I do think we might start to see that in the near future, and then it is a time where we can take on some of these lessons with regards to community, collectivity and sticking together throughout the corrosive effects of modernity. Anyway, these are just my thoughts. Substack is linked down below if you want to check it out. Let me know what you think, and do consider subscribing to the channel.